Hi everyone. So today we are talking about a very recent case. This is about 16-year-old Ralph Yarl, who was shot for simply knocking on the wrong door. I'm going to have a lot of heated opinions about this. So if I get really upset, try not to mind that. I'm not going to spare Mr. Andrew Lester for what he did. So let's go ahead and get into it. All the links that I used for research will be down below. There's also a GoFundMe down below. I think it's still accepting donations. It's for his medical expenses. So we're just jumping right in. So shortly before 10 p.m. on April 13th, 2023, police were called to a residence in Clay County, Missouri. 16-year-old Ralph, or Raphael Yarl, had been shot by a homeowner. This was Alexander D. Lester. According to Ralph's family, he had been trying to pick up his younger siblings from a friend's house, but he drove to the wrong address. He had confused 115th Street for 115th Terrace, which honestly, that's not hard to believe, especially if you're a 16-year-old kid, you're going by yourself to pick up your siblings, it's late at night. I would also mix up an address. He didn't do anything wrong. So this is a quote from the family's lawyer. He parked in the driveway, went up to the door, and rang the doorbell. The man inside opened up the door and shot him in the head through the glass door. When Raphael was on the ground, he shot him again. End quote. Yes, he was shot twice. Fucking ridiculous. So Ralph was seriously injured, but he was able to run to a neighbor's house for help. Then he was transported to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. Obviously, he was shot in the head. And he would remain in the hospital for 3 nights. The homeowner, Andrew D. Lester, who was 84, or is 84, he's still alive, was arrested. So, the Clay County prosecutor, Zachary Thompson, said felony criminal charges of first-degree assault and armed criminal action have been filed against Andrew Lester. If you're wondering why is it not like attempted murder, we're going to get into that later. I kind of agree with the reasoning why once I explain it to you. But those have been filed against him. And Zachary, was asked whether or not he believes the shooting was racially motivated, and he said that nothing of that nature is clear in the probable cause documents, and that Ralph and Andrew didn't appear to have any interaction before this, like they hadn't talked or anything like that. And now I just want to say that him announcing that did come after a ton of public outrage, because it seemed like the police and the officials were just delaying identifying and pressing charges against Andrew. Like they just wouldn't say anything. They were being very tight-lipped, and people were really upset about that. Like, why are you not making moves against someone who shot this child? We seem to forget that this was a child shot by an adult. I don't care if they're an elderly adult, they were still shot by an adult. Andrew had been arrested shortly after the shooting, but he was released the next day, and he's still a free man, by the way. So this is a quote from Ben Crump and Lee Merritt, who are civil rights attorneys that are also fighting for the family, and they say, "Gun violence against unarmed black individuals must stop. Our children should feel safe, not as though they are being hunted," end quote. That is a powerful statement because it really does feel like they're being hunted. He rang a doorbell and he was almost killed. It really feels like they're just being targeted because they are. And of course, Andrew would plead not guilty. I really don't know how he has the audacity to plead not guilty to almost killing this person, but like, hey, you do you, man. So, Zachary was asked why attempted murder or hate crime charges weren't pursued, and he said that his office chose charges that held the highest level of possible prison time. And I do kind of understand that because, and it's probably what's going to happen, Andrew could try to say, actually, he has tried to say that he was scared that this was a robbery, and there is a law in place in the state that we're going to get into in a bit that he has the right to kill someone that comes to his door. And they can't really say that it was racially motivated. They can't really say that he was attempting to murder this person, because he could just say, I'm just trying to defend myself, which is probably what he's going to do. And so for that reason, they had to go with the charges that they know will stick, that will likely stick, and that is what will give him the most present time, which makes sense. That's why a lot of people will think, well, why doesn't this crime go for first-degree murder, but it's going for second-degree murder? It's a lot easier to get a crime or a criminal charged with second-degree murder than first-degree murder. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, so it does make sense, even if it's upsetting and disappointing that we can't have more, because it feels like there should be more, because it feels like when you're looking at this, it's so obvious that he was just shooting to be shooting someone, But we're going to move on. Police refused to release many details about the case. They also declined to say if Andrew had called 911, which I highly doubt, but I'm not going to speculate on that. Zachary also said that Ralph did not enter the house at any point. That is very important. So, we're going to get into the law that I was talking about. Missouri is among 38 states with a stand your ground law, which is a criminal defense doctrine that allows people to use physical force if they reasonably believe they are under a threat, with no duty to retreat. And I know this law because my state is actually one of the states that have it. We also refer to it as the Make My Day law. You have the right to defend your home. If someone is on your property and they're not supposed to be there, you can shoot them. And I think you are allowed to shoot them to kill. I'm not well versed on that. Luckily, I've never been in that situation. But my state does have that, and that is a law in many states. So that is what I was referring to. We're going to get into some comments made by Clint Ledwig, who's actually the grandson of Andrew, and then we'll get into what Andrew says, and then how Ralph opposes that with his own statement, and that's how we're going to finish this video. So Clint Ledwig is Andrew Lester's grandson, and he believes that police should have acted sooner, and said that he believes his grandfather to have been consumed by conspiracies in recent years. He says that Andrew was constantly consumed by conservative news outlets and followed conspiracies that were built on misinformation. I have a ton of family like this, so I 100% believe that this is likely what could have happened. This is a quote from Clint, and he says, his actions are his responsibility, and falling into the fear and paranoia stoked by the 24-hour news cycle and wild conspiracies did not help his mental state, end quote. And like I said, I agree. I have a ton of family members who are the same way. I don't speak to them because they will believe anything that comes out of those news outlets, and it's concerning and also repulsive. But he goes on to say that Ralph deserves justice regardless of my relationship with the shooter. Black Lives Matter always, which I agree with. I hope that Ralph gets his justice. Even if Andrew is 84 years old, he should have to spend the remaining whatever time he has left in prison, because he almost took someone's life, and I don't think he should be allowed to have a gun if that's his first reaction. Now we're going to get into what Andrew says happened on that day. So Andrew would tell police that he had been going to bed when he heard the doorbell ring, and he would grab his .32 caliber revolver. He said he saw a black male he didn't know pulling on the exterior storm door handle and thought his home was being broken into. He claimed that shooting him was the last thing he wanted to do, and that he was scared to death of Ralph. So apparently his first decision was to not say, hey, what are you doing? Why are you coming into my house? Get off my fucking property. Or to even call 911 and say, hey, someone's breaking into my house. No, he decided to immediately grab his gun, which he already had going to the door, and shoot through the glass, shoot this child in the head, and then shoot the child in the arm. The child is on the ground because he was just shot in the head, and shoots the child in the arm. He is so scared to death of this child, this very skinny child. You see pictures of Ralph. I don't care if this man was 84 years old. Ralph is just a tiny little guy. You're scared of Ralph, so you shoot him twice. You shoot him in the head. You don't call the cops. You don't make a reasonable thing that says, hey, don't come on my property or I'm going to shoot. You just immediately shoot. The fuck is wrong with you? Okay, I'm going to go on to what Ralph says happens, and he says, no, that's not what happened. He says he did not pull on the door handle and that he was waiting after having rung the bell when Andrew opened the door and shot him in the head and the arm. He said afterwards he heard a voice say, don't come around here. I 100% will believe Ralph over Andrew because Ralph is the victim. I can't believe that Andrew was so terrified that he just shot. Because his actions don't make any sense. You don't call the police, you don't give a warning, you just shoot, which is just wild to me. And I do believe he just shot, and I don't think he had a good reason to. But anyways, he did plead not guilty. The max sentence that he could receive is life in prison, and he is still free on a $200,000 bail, and that is where we are currently. And I will continue updating on this case as I get more information. I think it's pretty obvious that I'm not a fan of Andrew Lester. I think what he did was absolutely despicable. I think he definitely had racist tendencies. I think he saw an unarmed black man and decided he didn't want this black man on his property because he grabbed his gun first thing, which isn't unusual. My family, they have guns, and we live in a rural area, and so whenever somebody shows up on our property that shouldn't be here, they do grab a gun when they go to the front door to see what's up, but they don't aim it at someone and shoot them. What do you want? Get off my property, I'm going to call the cops. And you know what happens? They almost always fucking leave. Actually, they always left. My parents have never had to shoot anybody. He could have went with a warning, but he chose not to, and I'm going to say he didn't do it. Because I think he just wanted to shoot. I have heard reports that this man has dementia, which I know aren't like corroborated anyway, but those are like the rumors that he has dementia. Personally, I think those are just to gain sympathy for Andrew. Even if he had dementia, why is he living on his own, for one thing? Why does he have a gun? Why? He's still in the wrong. End of story. And I hope he gets prison time. I hope he has to spend the remainder of his life in prison, even though it probably won't be that long. Ralph and his family deserve so much more, but I am happy to say that Ralph is alive, he is on the mend, and there is a GoFundMe down below for all of his expenses, not expensive, I'm sorry. But I'm gonna go. Thank you so much for listening to Ralph's story, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.